Hello, Amy.
Well, first of all, as we learned, you have the girl on the show right now that went to law school, so I'm going to pose a legal objection. Objection, Your Honor, assumes a fact, not an evidence. That assumes that I only had one flavor left.
I love that. Everyone was thinking you were going to say, how do you know I had ice cream? And I'm like, I just do. But you're right. I left off the S. What flavors did you have last night?
All right, I know we'll get to that. And then you always usually have some really hard test question for me at the end.
I know. We may or may not do that today. There's just too much football, Amy, to get into because it's week 1. It's overreaction time. That's a tradition in the second and third week of September, but it's especially true in the Bay Area right now. I want to know, in your mind, what is it that the 49ers can even do here? What's the path that keeps everybody in some form cool? We've got a number 3 overall draft pick. He's only 22. Here comes his 4th start. The presence of Garoppolo is still standing there on the sideline. It's like, how is this somehow going to happen where it's not a soap opera? Is that even possible?
Well, let's go back to last year for just 1 minute to set this up. San Francisco was a very, very, very good team last year. Many people have said that, with a top 5 quarterback, maybe even top 6, top 7, with a really, really good quarterback, San Francisco would have been dominating last year. So that's the issue. They haven't yet figured that out. Do they know if Trey is the right guy or not? How long are they going to give him? How many games are they willing to sacrifice as a quarterback learns? I mean, look, a very good general manager, a very good head coach, a terrific team owner. They are together going to have to make the decision. Do we believe he can advance to be the quarterback we believed he could be when we drafted him? And if we believe that, how many games may we be willing to sacrifice, not necessarily will sacrifice, but be willing to potentially sacrifice to see if he's that quarterback? We've seen around the league over decades quarterbacks who don't do well initially, who eventually turn into very good quarterbacks. We don't know if that's what's going to be the case with Trey or not, and they have to decide how many losses they may be willing to take to see if that is the case.
I know that you're saying they need to decide that, and you're right, but put yourself in their shoes. What would your answer be? How many games can they sit and watch?
Wow, that's a very well-stated question, putting me on the spot like that. And the answer is, my answer is not simply because of that whole law school background, but the answer is it depends. And here is what it would depend on. Do I still have the courage of my convictions? Do I still believe this is the quarterback we believed he could be when we drafted him? If I still had the courage of my convictions, then I would be willing to give him longer. If I was starting to doubt the draft pick, maybe less long. The other thing is, and since you've got the girl on the line right now who is on a business executive, a business area, I wasn't in the football milieu of the team, although I always laugh when people say that because the whole thing is about football. But if you're looking at it from a ticket sales, a sponsorship, and advertising standpoint, the 49ers don't have to worry about that. They are a well-run business. They're not one of the teams scrambling to find ticket holders, scrambling to find fans to attend the games, scrambling to find sponsors. So they've got a bit of leeway in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. That I get, and the health of the organization has already been established. But what a great person to ask, and I'm talking about you, Amy, because of your background with the phrase, just win, baby. And then you have a game last week where a lot of us, self-included, I was in the building and I was in the outside portions of it. I can find all kinds of things that happened in Chicago last week where I want to say, look, this was good, this was bad, and on this, we need to wait and see because of the circumstances of that game. That's not a just win, baby comment that I'm making. So you tell me, is that fair? Is it fair to talk about weather, first start as QB1, all of that, or is it just win, baby?
Well, again, it goes back to the point of, do you still have the courage of your convictions that this is the right quarterback for the future for your team? Because if you're doubting yourself, if you don't think that this is the guy, you're going to give him less leeway. If you still believe he is the man that can lead your team for years or decades to come, sure, you're going to look at weather. You're going to look at the condition of that field. My gosh, it was like a slip and slide. And by the way, who among us did not love slip and slide? Do you remember those?
Of course. And we've got a history with it here. Nick Bosa did this in Washington just a couple of years ago.
Zach Crockett.
Right. It looks like a ton of fun.
Zach Crockett did it in Oakland. We won a big game, and afterwards he was slip and sliding. And I was so desperate to run down on the field and do slip and slide, and my husband grabbed my arm and said, yeah, that's not really a good look. And I'm still to this day annoyed that I didn't do the slip and slide. But my point is, if I still believed that this is the man that could lead my team, and I don't know what the 49ers believe in that regard. I don't know what their internal discussions are, the discussions that are only behind closed doors and not making it to the public. If they still believe this is the guy, well, then, yeah, of course you're going to factor those things in.
Did you see, when Jimmy was re-signed, did you see that as circumstantial, like they said publicly, or did you see it as a hedge?
Yes and yes.
Uh-huh.
And that's, yes and yes. Do I see it as a hedge? Yes, I do, and I'm, of course, using hedge in the financial sense. Did I also think it is circumstantial? Sure. Going back to the shoulder and the ability to trade, and clearly there wasn't a market at the, at the price they wanted. So yes, I think it was a hedge, and yes, I think it was circumstantial. The thing that jumped out to me when they re-signed Jimmy was the fact that reputedly, Kyle and John met with some team leaders, I think a dozen or 15 team leaders, and said, need you to throw your support behind Trey, need you to show your support for Trey, whatever the exact words were. And I certainly understand the message they were trying to convey, but that stood out to me because I think support should be organic. It shouldn't be dictated.
Amy Trask with us, CBS Sports, also her time with the Raiders we know. And so with that, one more, Amy, and that is this. Chiefs and Chargers tonight. Right, your thoughts about this division and whether or not Derek Carr or anyone else is going to ever have an opportunity to win it again with these two quarterbacks in it.
Magnificent division, and I say this not simply because I spent my whole career in the AFC and with the Raiders in the AFC West. I think it's the best division, top to bottom, in the NFL. It doesn't mean there aren't terrific teams in other divisions, but if you want to say which division has the four teams that all of which could be contenders, I say it's the AFC West. Tonight's game, I have a very technical term for you. It's a football term about tonight's game. Delicious. This is a delicious game because, look, these four teams are very, very good, but they have to play one another twice. So they're going to beat up on one another, obviously, and a division win will mean a lot in this division. You're right. Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, they are magnificent quarterbacks. But you know what? Russell Wilson is I think Russell Wilson is magnificent. I think Russell Wilson has been underappreciated and underestimated his whole career. And Derek Carr is a good quarterback. But, I think you look at the combination of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and to me, that's just a wow. Now, Josh McDaniel may turn into that. We just don't know yet.
Yep, absolutely. I'm going to sort of quote Sarah McLachlan, Amy. This game is better than ice cream.
Well, let's not get carried away, okay? But I can assure you of this. There will be an ice cream sundae bar set up in my house, and by bar, I mean all the toppings, all the whipped cream toppings, sprinkles, everything, and multiple flavors of ice cream. And if you're thinking, gee, how many people are you having over? The answer is just me and my husband.
One or two, yeah. Amy, you're fantastic as always. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's always my treat.